everybody, my name's Sarah and welcome to my channel So Sarah Sewed. Today I'd like to share with you everything I made in August. So August was a pretty productive month for me. I live in Melbourne and we've been in lockdown, a pretty strict lockdown since the 5th of August. So I was home a lot in August. I got a lot of spare time to knit and sew, and so there are a few things to share with you today. One of those things is what I'm wearing, but I'll get onto this one later. And the very first thing I'd like to share with you today is my Sudley blouse. So this is the Sudley blouse by Nielsen Patterns, who's an Australian designer. I chose to make mine in a Rifle Paper Company cotton. So I was very fortunate to receive a voucher for my birthday to the Rifle Paper Company. So I actually bought this directly from them on their website. I got 3 yards of this cotton. I've got a lot left over, but I was able to make the Peter Pan collar. So it is, I think it's view A of the Sudley blouse. So the Sudley blouse, there are a number of different views. You've got the blouse and you've got the dress. There are a whole lot of different sleeve lengths, and there's also the collar or no collar. This dress or blouse is actually also designed to be able to be worn with the collar at the front or the keyhole at the front. So personally, I feel like the keyhole at the front works quite well without the collar, but for me, I feel like if I've got this on with the keyhole at the front and that at the back, it just looks a little bit like I've worn it back to front. But I'll put some pictures in and you can decide for yourself what you think about that. So this pattern is, it was a great pattern. It's actually labeled as 3 out of 5 on the website. But the instructions were very clear, and I suppose for me the very hardest thing about it was these ties, turning them. I'm not very good at turning ties. I actually had to make a third one in the end because my pin, my safety pin that I had been sliding through to try and turn my first one just got stuck in the middle, and I could not get it out. So that was probably the most challenging part and the most time-consuming part of this blouse. The rest of it came together pretty quickly. So I recommend this pattern. I did the elbow length sleeve, and at first when I made this, I actually thought maybe the combination of the sleeve length, the floral, the Peter Pan collar, it's actually quite a long shirt as well. I was a little bit worried that it aged me a little bit wearing this blouse, because I probably preferred more of a cropped style, but I think if I just tuck it into high-waisted pants or a skirt, I sort of get away with it. Also, I quite enjoy layering this one. Works pretty well underneath this jumper, but also underneath a vest. So that is my Nielsen Sudley blouse. Something else I'd like to say about that pattern is it does come with quite an extended number of sizes, all the way from 0 to 30 in 2 different size bands. But it's quite an expensive pattern, and I suppose given the detail of the instructions and the number of views that are included in the pattern, it's not bad value. But one thing I do really prefer in a pattern, which this one doesn't have, I buy all of my patterns as PDFs, and this one doesn't have layers. And I think at that price point, I think it would have been great if this one had layers and I could just print the size or sizes that I was after. Something to keep in mind. The next pattern I'd like to share with you is my Ebony Tee Dress by Closet Core Patterns. I absolutely love this pattern. It was so easy to follow. The instructions are very, very clear. For someone like me who does not have an overlocker and is using a sewing machine, there are instructions the whole way about which stitch length to use, which settings you should have your machine on, and I found that really great. And I feel like even though I don't have an overlocker, I got a really nice finish on all of my seams. This one, there are a few different views you can make, and I actually started off a couple of months ago making the t-shirt, or the cropped long sleeve tee, but although I enjoyed making it, I just found it way too cropped, and I can't even imagine being able to wear it. But I wanted to try the pattern again, and this time as a dress. So I've made the dress version with the dual neckline. It is just one great big long front piece, one great big long back piece, the sleeves and the neckband. So it was really, really easy to make. Highly recommend this pattern. It's so comfortable. there's heaps of room in it. It's quite a swing style. I'll put some photos in so you can see. But this one I've been really enjoying wearing with leggings. I know it'll work also without them, especially because the back is lower than the front. So it'll just be easy to wear, even without the leggings. I made the 3/4 length sleeves. I thought that would be handy in between, so in spring and autumn as well. And this beautiful, beautiful fabric, I fell in love with this. This is from Maai Design in Victoria. It's a cotton elastane, but it's got 10% elastane, so it's really stretchy. It's a mid-weight, so it's quite thick, so perfect for layering up in the winter, and just extremely comfortable. The colors in this I just think are absolutely beautiful, so that's what really drew me to this fabric. And I know there's still some available at Maai Design if that's something that catches your eye as well. So that is my Closet Core Ebony Tee Dress. The next thing I'd like to show you is a pattern by Tilly and the Buttons. It is the Billie jumper. Now I've made a few of these before, and I just find them so comfortable to wear, and I'm reaching for my cotton one all the time. So I decided I wanted to make another one, but this time something that was a little bit more work appropriate, something I could dress up a little bit for work. So in this one, I have made it with a Merino Tencel blend from the fabric store, and it just drapes beautifully. It is so comfortable. Again, I use the balloon sleeves because I feel like this just gives it a little bit more of a formal kind of look. And then the ribbing I got from Maai Design, and that's just a cotton ribbing from Maai Design, because I wasn't really sure if the Merino Tencel would work as the neckband and the hem and the cuffs. So I think that works really, really well. I love wearing it. It's super, super comfortable. And I made a size 5. My measurements for Tilly and the Buttons put me in a size 5, and that seems to work really, really well for me. So again, I'll put some pictures up so you can see me wearing it. One thing I learnt when I was making my Billie jumper is that there is something, if you don't have an overlocker, there is something on a lot of sewing machines called the lightning stitch, which I never knew. And it has actually really changed my confidence in sewing with knits, because sometimes I was finding when I was making knit tops with just a zigzag stitch, they could sometimes break, especially with the little top that I made for my son. He was often coming and there was a little hole in the arm seam. And this lightning stitch, it's really, really narrow, and it's so stretchy, and it's made such a big difference. And I feel confident when I'm sewing with the sewing machine now, and very comfortable sewing knits, even without an overlocker, and don't feel like I need one at all at this point. So excellent instructions on the Billie, and I'd highly recommend this pattern. I have actually ordered some fabric. I'm intending to make another Billie jumper, but the next one I will just do the regular sleeves rather than the balloon sleeves. And I think next year I might try and make a dress out of that as well. A dress with the Billie pattern as well. I have quite a few Tilly and the Buttons patterns that I've been making recently. And the next one is the Freya top. So the Freya top is from this book, Tilly and the Buttons stretch book. And I actually bought this book basically because I wanted to make the Freya top. I love the look of it. It looks super comfortable. It has what's called a mock neck, so a little bit high, a little bit of a turtleneck, but just really easy to put in. And it's quite a fitted top. So while I said that usually I wear a size 5 in Tilly and the Buttons patterns, I actually made a size 6 in this one just to give myself a little bit more room. So it wasn't quite as fitted. It's still pretty fitted though, as you'll see in the pictures. I find this is excellent for layering up with my yoke pinafores, and very, very comfortable on colder days. So that's what I generally wear that with. It's quite bright, and just to tone it back a little bit, I usually wear it with a black yoke pinafore. This book, being from this book, this pattern only comes, it's quite limited sizing, so it only comes in sizes 1 to 8. So only a couple of sizes bigger than this one. So unfortunately that one doesn't come in a huge size range. Next I'll talk about this jumper that I'm knitting. So I decided to learn to knit earlier this year, and this is called the Novice Jumper by Petite Knit. So I started, my first garments that I made were also Petite knit patterns. The holiday slipover, I made 2 of those to build my confidence, and then I decided I wanted to make a jumper. So this is the Novice Jumper Mohair edition. It's knit with 2 strands of mohair the whole time on quite small needles, so 3 and 4 millimeter needles. So it was quite a long process. I started in June and finished in August. And that's with being at home quite a bit and being able to knit in my lunch breaks. So it would have taken me a lot longer had we not been in lockdown. I chose a mohair by Isager to knit this in. It's just a dusty pink color, which is absolutely beautiful. I loved knitting this. It was just a beautiful feel the whole time. I learnt a lot of new skills. I found that the first sleeve I made quite a few mistakes, and by the second sleeve everything was a lot smoother. I had learnt to knit with double pointed needles for the very first time, which was quite a challenge. But now I'm feeling confident about that. So that's what I really enjoyed about this pattern, especially, was just the skill building. This is only listed, I think, as a 1 out of 5. I could have been a 2 out of 5 on the Petite knit scale of difficulty. And really it was more time consuming than difficult, just because how fine the yarn was and how small the needles were. I'll stand up for you. You can see a little bit. I decided to go with the elbow length sleeves. Probably if I was to do it again, I would make them maybe just a tiny bit longer, but they're pretty comfortable. Also, if I was to make it again, I would do a stretchy bind off on the bottom here. It's just, there's no give in the bottom of the hem. I did learn how to do one a bit more for the sleeves, because the first time I cast off the sleeves, I couldn't actually get it past my wrist. So I had some help from some Instagram followers who helped me find the correct bind off for that. So in the end, I used Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, which was really, really helpful for the sleeve cuffs. And next time I would also do that on the hem if I had another chance. So this is really, really comfortable, lovely and soft, not itchy at all, just a lovely warm, and yet I think it'll, because of the sleeve length, I think it'll also be getting a lot of wear in spring as well. Another Tilly and the Buttons pattern I made and discovered this month was the detachable collar. So a very quick and easy pattern that allows you to find a scrap or a small piece of fabric that you might have that you haven't had use for, and create something fun and to just brighten up an outfit a bit. So I used this, I think it was a cotton lawn. I had it in my fabric stash. I have a lot of fat quarters in my stash. I used to do a lot of quilting and bought a lot of fat quarters. All of my quilts were made by hand, and so I was pretty slow at it. So I could buy a lot more fabric than I was able to use. I can't even remember where this one came from. It might have been a gift, but I just think it's beautiful. So, and I thought it would match really, really well, especially with this dusty pink jumper. So I made this collar with the intention of wearing it with this, and I think they go really well together. I'll put some photos here so you can see. This was a really easy make. In the pattern, it says that you need about 1 meter of fabric, and I think that's if you're doing both sides in the same fabric. But the pattern piece is on an angle that I'll show you here. So you can see here, this is the grain line to go parallel with the selvage, but up here is the fold line. So generally, I think we're used to making things where we've got our fold line and our grain line that are parallel with each other, and you can line things up pretty easily. But because of the position of this grain line and this fold line, it took a little bit more fabric if you were following that. So because my pattern was non-directional, And I wasn't really, you know, being such a small, light piece of fabric, I'm not having to worry about things stretching or getting out of shape. I just didn't follow the grain line for this one. And I just folded my fabric in a way that the pattern piece would fit, and it worked out beautifully. So I'm really, really happy with that. So if you've got a fat quarter in your stash that is not directional, I recommend having a go at some stash busting with that and making a collar. Very fun and very easy. So the last thing I have to show today is not a garment, but it is a quilt. So I have a sister who lives in Hong Kong, and just last week she had a baby girl, and I've known, you know, this was going to happen for quite some time, and I had been planning on making a quilt, and I actually bought the fabric back in March, but left the actual sewing of it until just a couple of weeks before the baby was due. So I had a busy weekend, a couple of weekends ago, piecing this together. Now this was actually my very first machine pieced quilt. So as I said before, I've made quite a few quilts in the past, but always by hand. So they've taken me months and months. And it was quite a different experience to sew one up on the machine and following all the instructions in the pattern, the quick ways to cut the half square triangles and things like that. So it was a really great learning experience and a much quicker way to put together a quilt. I made the Maizie pattern by Penelope Handmade. It is listed as a beginner pattern, and it was absolutely fine as a beginner machine quilter to make, and I loved seeing the pattern come together. So it's actually just a pattern made of half square triangles, but then all shifted in different directions. I'll just show you a little bit, but I will put a picture of the finished quilt top in the screen as well, so you can see the whole thing. The more you can see, the better effect you get. So all of these fabrics were purchased from the Scribbly Gum Quilt Company. And in fact, I wrote to Jodie, who is the owner of that business, and told her what I was looking for. I knew my sister was having a baby girl. She's had boys before, and I wanted something quite floral, quite girly. And I wanted for the first time also to base my quilt fabrics on the backing. So choose the backing first and go from there. So we went with this beautiful art gallery cotton, and then chose fabrics from within that for the front. So I think they go beautifully together. Jodie is a genius when it comes to colour matching and choosing for quilts. It started raining outside, I'm not sure you can hear that, but it's quite lovely and cozy. So that I did finish the quilt top. You might be able to see I've got some the clips around it because I've now also quilted it and bound it, and that is one of my jobs for September, is to hand stitch the binding to the front and get that sent to my sister. So that is everything that I made in August. It was quite a lot, but as I said, I've been at home pretty much all the time, and it's looking like September is heading the same way. So September might also be quite a productive month. So I hope you've enjoyed watching my video. I'd love to know what your favorite one of my makes has been, or if you've made any of those yourself, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks for watching.